what's going on, guys? I'm gonna get right to the point here. If you like Invincible, here are 5 comics that you have to have on your radar. Number 1, Miracle Man by Alan Moore, Gary Leach, and Alan Davis. This series is actually a reboot of an old 1950s Shazam ripoff comic called Marvel Man by L. Miller and Son Publishing, I think it was called. And this comic is about a middle-aged reporter named Michael Moran. And Michael keeps having these dreams about his childhood and how, after saying a magic word which he just can't bring himself to quite remember, he would transform into a superhero called Miracle Man and go on all of these crazy adventures with his childhood friends who were also superheroes, but after being held at gunpoint by a terrorist while covering the grand opening of a nuclear power plant, and I just realized that calling it a grand opening makes it sound like a Walmart, but look, you know what I was saying. Michael remembers the magic word, and he becomes Miracle Man again, and as time goes on, he realizes that those dreams are actually memories. And those old 1950s adventures that he went on as a kid did happen, kind of, not really. There's a really dark and fucked up twist to this comic that I just don't want to spoil. But this book, on top of being very violent and visceral, is also filled with a lot of wonder and very trippy at points. This is also probably the best deconstruction of the Superman archetype I've ever seen. Ever? In comics? Or just anywhere? I don't know. I don't want to hype it up to an impossible standard, but I would go as far to say that you don't get Invincible without Miracle Man. Or Watchmen. Or Dark Knight Returns. Or The Boys. Or The Authority. Or just about anything written by Mark Millar. So, this is a book that is definitely worth checking out. And speaking of Mark Millar, number 2, Wanted by Mark Millar, J.G. Jones, and Paul Mounts. If you've ever heard of this book, chances are you've watched or at least heard about the movie and that it was based on a comic book, which it kind of is. They're not really the same thing. It's kind of like the difference between getting invited to your Mexican grandma's house for dinner and eating Taco Bell. Anyway, the comic takes place in a world where superheroes used to exist, but the supervillains figured, since for every one hero, there's like 20 villains, why not have every supervillain ever team up and curb stomp the heroes? So that's exactly what they do, and they build a massive super weapon that rewrites reality so that nobody but them remembers that superheroes ever existed, and the bad guys form this, like, Illuminati shadow government. And the major thing that works about this comic is that when this comic opens, it has both feet firmly planted in the real world. But once the protagonist, Wesley Gibson, is flung face first into this supervillain society called the Fraternity, it's like peeping behind a curtain into a wonderland that once was. And that sort of becomes the primary schism of the book. And you're watching all of these really colorful personalities clash with one another, and you even wind up liking some of these characters because they're charming, and they're funny, and they're quirky. But then the comic stops and reminds you that they're still bad guys, and they actually behave like bad guys, and they do things that bad guys would realistically do in a world where they didn't have to suffer the consequences of their actions. And at the end of the day, this is a really fun, dark, fucked up comic if you're looking for something high concept, but also just debaucherous and nihilistic. Number 3, The Ultimates by, once again, Mark Millar, and this time Brian Hitch. I've done multiple videos and podcasts on The Ultimates, so I'm not going to go too deep into this one, but this is basically the Avengers by way of Team America. This comic is an edgy, violent, raunchy satire of Marvel Comics, the George W. Bush administration, and post-MTV, post-9/11 America. I know this book isn't for everyone, especially a lot of Marvel fans who grew up with the MCU, but if you like M-rated superhero comics like Invincible or even The Boys, this is definitely up your alley. Number 4, Astro City by Kurt Busiek, Brent Anderson, and Alex Ross. So, This is a slice of life anthology series that takes place in Astro City, a quasi 1950s Silver Age superhero society, and you just sort of follow different people, be it superheroes, villains, or just random people on the street who go about their lives in Astro City. And that's it. That's the entire book. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that this is the best superhero comic ever published. I don't know if I can go that far, but it is really good. And much like Invincible, this is a love letter to superhero comics. A far less angry love letter than Invincible is at times, but a love letter nonetheless. And coming in at number 5, Superman American Alien by Max Landis, Nick Dragotta, Jonathan Case, Joel Jones, Tommy Lee Edwards, Jock, Francis Manapul, and Jay Lee. Fuck, that is a lot of names. So, the best way that I can describe this comic is that this is a post-Invincible reinvention of Superman. About every 10 to 15 years, DC puts out a new origin story for Superman. Granted, most of them aren't in continuity with DC's main universe canon. Most of them are just movie pitches. Although, to be fair, even the ones that are in continuity feel like movie pitches. But American Alien is set in its own little universe, and this is the book that's all about Clark struggling with his alien heritage and coming to grips with who he is and what he wants from life. The tone and aesthetic of this comic is very much a cross between The Ultimates, Smallville, and Invincible. This is a coming-of-age story for Clark Kent as he embraces his humanity and comes to terms with being a freak, and much like Invincible, this is a very gritty comic. It's very violent at times, showing off how destructive and scary a lot of Clark's abilities realistically are, and how he scares other people as well as himself, and what that does to a child growing up with those abilities. And ironically, it's actually been the foundation for Superman the Man of Tomorrow, the animated movie, and the current, all ages, My Adventures with Superman cartoon. So, there you go. But there you have it. Those are 5 comics that you should definitely check out, or again, at the very least, keep on your radar if you like the Invincible TV series, or if you like the show and started reading the comic, or if you finished the comic and you want something that's tickling the hairs in that ballpark. In any case, I hope you enjoy, happy reading, and hit that like button, please share and support the channel, and if you want to see more content like this, all you have to do is subscribe. I'm the Mystical Green Beanie, thank you for watching, and as always, until next time, take care guys.
Common interest.